अर्चित, पता है कि इंटरव्यू जो हम जब लेते हैं ना से आजकल काफी ज्यादा इंटरव्यू पे ध्यान दे रहे हैं हम लोग। तो पता मजे क्या मजे।
क्या?
अरे बिल्कुल प्रेप करना नहीं पड़ता है, ज्यादा पढ़ाई लिखाई करनी नहीं है, सब काम गेस्ट ने करना है, अपन पीछे बैठेंगे मस्त खाई नहीं बनाते तो बैठ के या पान खाते तो ओए टेंशन ही नहीं है लाइफ में।
अबे काम चोर सेलिब्रिटी, ऐसा कुछ
एक
नहीं है। हर एपिसोड के पहले, गेस्ट इंटरव्यू के पहले, मैं सारे आर्टिकल्स या एसेस पढ़ता हूँ गेस्ट के, तो ठीक है।
ये देखो, झूठ
ये
मत बोलो, ये तुम जैसे फैन लोग होते हैं जाके शाहरुख खान सर बिग फैन बिग फैन, आई हैव सीन ऑल योर मूवी। और उसमें से जब आती है बात माया मैम साहब देखी है तो बोलते हैं वो तो अकेले में देखी थी।
व्हाट?
प्लीज।
माया मेम साहब, व्हाट इज दैट?
देखा, ये देखो ये आ गए सेलिब्रिटी वाले। शाहरुख खान की तुम्हें माया मैम साहब ने किया, यू शुड वॉच इट। इवन शाहरुख खान इज ashamed of doing that movie, जस्ट लाइक हाउ अमिताभ बच्चन इज ashamed of doing बूम। तो वैसे ही माया मैम साहब वेरी ashamed। खैर, हम ये शर्मनाक हरकतें जो हैं बाद में करेंगे। टुडे वी हैव एक्चुअली आज का जो 51वां एपिसोड है, तो 51वां एपिसोड के लिए वी हैव गॉट स्पेशल गेस्ट। हाँ, एज यूजुअल हमारे पास तो गेस्ट बिल्कुल स्पेशल तड़का मार के आते हैं। टुडे वी हैव शरण्या दीपक। शरण्या इज एन अवार्ड विनिंग राइटर, मतलब बतेरे अवार्ड अवार्ड लेके बैठी हैं, पता नहीं क्यों। मुझे भी अवार्ड चाहिए, मुझे कभी अवार्ड नहीं मिला है बचपन से आज तक। खैर कोई बात नहीं, सह लेंगे। खैर, so Sharanya has written wide range and array on like different articles on food. The recent one is tandoori momo, then there's custard powder, then there's issues on saffron production. Also covers a lot story from Kashmir, Bhut Jolokia in Kashmir as well, and a lot of her writing captures social context as well. So, and of course, she has written for portals like Eater, Atlas Obscura, 52, and at a couple of other places. So yeah, काफी फैंसी है ये। तो इनका इस्तकबाल कर लेते हैं फटाफट रिवाज के हिसाब से। हेलो एंड वेलकम शरण्या टू आवर नान करी पॉडकास्ट।
हेलो, थैंक यू फॉर हैविंग मी। और काफी तारीफें कर लिया आपने 2 मिनट में, सो
और
थैंक
क्या
यू।
हो दस किन्नियां तारीफां चाहिए तेनू।
I would have been disappointed if you didn't sing that song.
है ना देखा,
Yeah.
आई नेवर डिसअपॉइंट, लैनिस्टर नेवर डिसअपॉइंट्स। और मैं
Is that the quote? चलो।
पता नहीं, लैनिस्टर ऑलवेज पेज द एडिट, ऐसा कुछ था। अरे गेम ऑफ थ्रोन्स का वो भी था ना पिछला वाला।
अच्छा, वो गेम ऑफ थ्रोन्स बहुत पहले खत्म हो गया, किसी को याद नहीं
अरे
होगा।
प्लीज एक्सक्यूज मी सर, गेम ऑफ थ्रोन्स का प्रीक्वल आने वाला है अब।
अच्छा, okay.
मतलब एपिसोड सीजन 1 का सीजन 0 ऐसा कुछ आ रहा है।
हम्म।
खैर उसके लिए हम गेओटी को किसी के आदमी को बुला लेते हैं। अभी तो फिलहाल शरण्या है हमारे पास। शरण्या, स्ट्रेट अप, मतलब योर राइटिंग ऑफ कोर्स इंस्पायर्स मेनी because of I think multiple things. There's also this complexity there, and then there's simplicity as well in the way you pick words, because often when you find people they're like heavy, बिल्कुल शशि थरूर लाइट बन जाते हैं लोग। but your has that simplicity.
And I also see that there's always an underdog protagonist in your story. For example, in the article on saffron production, there's the saffron farmers. In the tandoori momos article, there is the immigrants, the Tibetan immigrants. So is that intentional, or is that just happens to be a theme of all across your essays?
I think वो I think वो हो जाता है also because like I was telling you before we started recording, like Vikram doctor, he's like just knows everything, right? Like he knows, he has an awareness of like many things. मुझे ना सही में कुछ like I literally I have like very little things that I already know, like so I kind of go into everything learning very much like from people, and I'll ask very stupid questions and things like that. So, and oftentimes the people that enter my articles are people that I become very attached to while I'm reporting. So I think that wo ho jata hai, and I don't know, like I mean maybe it's partly intentional, but it's also my personality to like find like observe other people more than I'm like, oh mujhe ye sab lag raha hai. Like later I'll maybe think about how I felt in the time, but like other people are just very they're just like I reported this article in Goa about indigenous rice varieties वगैरह, and it wasn't dry at all as many people would have thought, because there was this man jinka naam Santano Rodriguez hai, and he was like driving me around Goa, and he always had this little topi, and he would like talk in this very specific way. फिर वो अपने स्कूटर पे बिठा के मुझे ले जाते थे. He would never eat, but he would be like आप खाओ, and it was just like he had like a personality that I became very was like, you're just really fun. So he became like my character for that story. So I think wo ho jata hai, like it's just because people are really interesting here, so like that's kind of why I started reporting in the first place, because I just like the things people say, even with Sadaf, like many times I've called him for a piece or wo kuch bol deta, and then it just kind of sticks in my mind. So then it kind of comes in. So I think it's both, but it's also just my personality to be like very in tune with everyone around me in a room. I'm always like observing them in a way.
So I am curious then. So I mean, the two things. First, of course, have you always been interested in food space? And if not, or if you were, then what kind of influenced you to explore this fantastic space?
So I've never really been someone who's like, I think I was always kind of, my sister is very big food. She's very like, she wants to find the right restaurant. Usko ye sab karna hota tha. मुझे नहीं थी इतनी दिलचस्पी इन चीजों में, but when I went abroad to study to Belgium, और मैंने कुछ खा किया वहाँ पे, it was horrible, and I wasn't like doing anything, like all my, because I don't know why I thought I was like मैं जाऊँगी कुछ, मुझे ना human rights में काम करना था, but it didn't. Then I realized what is actually at stake, and it's all like this global NGO type of culture, which was kind of weird. So then I wanted to come back to writing, and around then, that magazine, Roads and Kingdoms, which was launched by Anthony Bourdain, late Anthony Bourdain, it was like they were looking for pitches, and I was very enamored with Anthony Bourdain, the person. So I'd like watched him travel or yesa, and that magazine seemed really cool, like very like cool stories from places, and like kind of like an underground way of telling stories. And unko food stories chahiye thi. So that's literally how I was like, मैं इनके साथ काम करूंगी और मुझे भी cool बनना है. So then I started like, I found some pitches and I essentially sent it to them. And also it was when I came back home, 2015 में पहले आई, और फिर 2017 में there, I was like starting off as a freelancer, and it's a hard life, so I wanted to find a niche कि मैं इसमें काम करूं और फिर उसके बाद मैं दूसरी चीजें लिखूं. And the food space was coming up, like international publications are looking for writers and all those things. So I decided that I'm going to just like concentrate in one space, because like नहीं तो बहुत खतरनाक मुकाबला है ना, if you go into journalism, every bit, and it's not, and news is not my strong feat, like to go somewhere and be like अच्छा क्या हो रहा है and then leave, and I'm not good at like when something horrible is happening to like take a mic to people, वो नहीं आता मुझे. So I wanted to do something that was allowing me to kind of comment on the things that were happening, but not from a direct, like not in a direct way. So like घुमा फिरा के talk about something, but not that, like not like in a news way, because that's not how I engage with information. Like, so वो सब मिला के, that's kind of how I started food writing. But weird thing is, once I started, I realized that food has always kind of been a part of, like, obviously, like you're thinking about, like even your really, like your everyday choices, your politics are informed by the things that you eat or don't eat and things like that. So, बस वो सब, but it was very much a thing of a moment, like because I think 17 में शुरू किया था मैंने, and then it was very like US publications were putting out calls for they were like South Asia writers, things like that. So it was like it was happening then. So it was because of that mostly, I think.
Oh, nice.
Awesome.
I have a question. For Archit, because Sharanya mentioned that कैसे cool बनना था, तो cool बनने के लिए ना खाने में आ गए. Archit, तुमने क्या किया ऐसे हरकतें cool बनने के लिए? Apart from writing the butter chicken poem.
Cool बनने के लिए अब सोचना पड़ेगा, बहुत कुछ किया होगा cool बनने के लिए.
एक तो कुछ किया होगा ना, मुझे को भी cool बनना है स्कूल कॉलेज में. हुडी नहीं पहना, नहीं. हुडी पहन कोई cool नहीं बनता यार.
Exact opposite, गर्म हो जाता है.
Joke, एक और joke.
Yeah. अच्छा, एक सेकंड, मुझे एक serious point बोलना है.
Death ही हो गई.
So, I asked you, Sharanya, why is there an underdog in your story usually? And I think you answered that with the second answer, that you have a background in human rights. So maybe that reflects in your stories.
Yeah, but I don't honestly have a background in human rights at all. I was like, those were my aspirations. And I was like, oh, दुनिया में कुछ बहुत अच्छा करूँगी, I will save lives, वगैरह. I was like, I think every 21, 22-year-old is like, क्या तुम, what you will do when you graduate. I didn't graduate. It's just like all my plans were just kind of, they didn't work out. But I think I'm just like, I'm intrigued by people, and I'm intrigued by the things that they feel or know more than I do. And also I don't have a very big high idea of myself. I'm not like, oh, मुझे ये पसंद है तो ये सही है. So yeah, for me very much I was like trying to listen, and I've always been kind of annoyed by kind of more elite trends because I think it's just the default of. Man, I grew up in East Delhi, और मैं school गई थी Central Delhi में, ठीक है? तो फिर there was this constant like. There was this constant thing where I was going to school with kids who were constantly like, I mean, it was just given कि उनको पता है क्या सही है और वो असली दिल्ली वाले और हम नकली हैं और वो cultured है और मैं नहीं हूँ, you know, like that thing.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of like shows that kind of like gussa, kind of like channel it into trying to think about how people who are on the top are not usually like saying something that's very informed. So I mean, so I just try to figure out what's behind.
Which is exactly also what Anthony Bourdain did with a lot of his shows and a lot of his writing. He went to the places where typically the elites did not go when he traveled to a new city. And that's exactly what I loved about him and his shows. And he was a huge influence for me as well during my teenage years when his show used to be there on TV. And even later with his other shows. Yeah.
And he's very like human man. Nah? There was a lot of... it wasn't this like, oh, I'm a white American man and I'm going to go and tell people what to do. He would just go places, and I remember wo kahin jate the and he would just be completely amazed. Like you could see that he was like falling in love with people if they fed him something, because his whole face would change. He wasn't very like, there weren't any big words. It was more kind of like a, dude, you have to eat this kind of vibe joke. He's very simple person, but obviously not simple because he was intelligent. And there's a lot of talk about how, especially with white people traveling the world, it can go wrong. Kafi, they can become very orientalist. But he somehow did not do that. So I think just because he was always so in awe of everyone that he met, he was like, wow, to like everybody would. So I loved that.
Bhai ka bhai tha, Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah, he was great. Good man.
Simple people can also be intelligent. Just saying.
Anthony Bourdain, the human man.
Oh wow. Piche se sound the papa.
But to me, only simple things are intelligent. You know, I think when you dress up things, like when you make them like fancy sounding, and this is something I struggle with in my work because I am a writer also. So mujhe na thoda wo khoobsurati se kabhi likhna, I kind of like, I'm like, oh, I should make this sound a little lofty, and then later I read it and I'm just like, yeah. So I like, there's also a sense of also aspiring to something when I'm writing. So anyway, sorry, that's another topic.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why we started this podcast, because we wanted to sort of democratize, de-intellectualize conversations around food. That's why हम लोग ऐसे colloquial भाषा में English में बात करते हैं. We don't have शुद्ध हिंदी or pure English. कभी-कभी pure English में बोलना पड़ता है, but otherwise we just keep it colloquial.
Yeah, that's what I asked Sadaf. I was like, Hindi or English? He was like, joke करना करोगे.
हिंदुस्तानी.
It's your thing.
तो खैर ये सब हो गया. अब ना एक बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग सा है, meat of the matter. Actually, not necessarily meat of the matter, but whatever. We read your article on Momo, momos, whatever way you call it. And for people who are listening, नीचे शो नोट में ना लिंक है, बाकी सारे आर्टिकल्स जिसके बारे में मेंशन किया है उसके भी लिंक है, जाए क्लिक करें और पढ़ लें. खैर, तो अब ये जो मोमो के बारे में बात हो रहा है. Now, before we get into the meat of the matter again, I want to understand one thing. And because in the article you also write about what it means to a Delhi wala, right? Now, somebody like me who was really new in Delhi, so to speak, and there are other people as well who may or not know what Momo is for Delhi folks, and because when they go somewhere, they're like, oh my God, Momo nahi mila. Aise kaise chalegi zindagi? And also because the Momo, first of all, letting people already know, disclaimer, the Momo that we get in Delhi is far superior as a street food than the same Momo that you find anywhere else. And I often have got like disappointed in places where they're not, so to speak, specialized in Momo. So tell me, tell me what it is for Delhi walas which sort of pulls them to eat Momo, and the entire culture, the entire tradition of eating Momo.
One second, before you answer that, Sharanya, I want to ask Sadaf. Sadaf, you say that you recently moved to Delhi. Oh, how recent was that? Please tell our listeners.
बस अभी मतलब जुम्मा 4 दिन हुए, बस 10-11 साल हुए.
Yeah, recent.
थोड़ी सी एक क्वार्टर नहीं जिंदगी की एक हाँ जितनी जिंदगी जिया है उसके एक क्वार्टर मैंने दिल्ली में गुजारा है, तो बड़ा डिसेंट है.
Are you saying you're 40 years old?
अरे नहीं
Or
भाई.
you're saying your math is weak?
है नो 3 नहीं 1 क्वार्टर कैसे हो 1
1/3 हो गया.
1/3 1/4 आई मेंट.
हाँ 1/4 और क्वार्टर एक ही होता है.
ये व्हाटएवर 10 या साल ले लो नहीं यार तुम अपने हिसाब से एडजस्ट कर लेना.
अच्छा चलो ठीक है. हाँ सॉरी शरण्या प्लीज.
हाँ नहीं, but the thing is that what does it mean to दिल्ली वाला? वो तो यार you know it's this simultaneous thing कि हमें मोमोज पसंद भी है पर हम मोमोज को खराब करके भी छोड़ते हैं. So I think it's that's the very Delhi thing for me ना. It's like जो चीज सबसे ज्यादा पसंद हो उसकी मतलब खत्म करो उसको नाप शनाप चटना कुछ भी मतलब that's I think that's a classic Delhi way of showing love. You're just like kind of love you but I'm going to you know are we allowed to swear on your podcast?
बिल्कुल
Sure.
बिल्कुल.
No, I mean it's that same thing of like my friends, like all my relationships with my friends are like, हाँ हम तुमसे मोहब्बत बहुत करते हैं, but I'm like I will also fuck you up simultaneously. So that's like how I feel like Delhi feels about momos. You're like I love momos, but खराब करो उसको. So
यही तो सच्चा इश्क है.
हाँ हमारे हिसाब से doesn't really translate पता है global. क्या हो तुम like राक्षस but पता नहीं. I think so for me like during college. And it was all that we would eat. So I think it was also like a thing that is a dish that because of habit you become so attached to it. Because Rosanna kha rahe ho, you know, there's like people will have, and it's just I remember my friend Mohit. There's only one kind. हम एक जगह जाते थे और वो एक ही तरीके का मोमो था, but he would be like, मेरा ना 3 मिनट कम आप स्टीम करो, just because you want it to be different. So it's just like a dumb thing, but everyone is so obsessed with it. But everybody had their little like tricks with it. And obviously वो इस आर्टिकल में मैंने ज्यादा नहीं लिखा है इसके बारे में, but I was doing some research for like someone else for like a research place about how you know when the Tibetans came in 60s में वो आए थे, and then उसके बाद they kind of like settled, and even then because like you know Delhi people hadn't opened their minds towards foreigners at all, and I don't believe that even now we have, but तब उनके you know like to them so they used to live in Majnu Ka Tila वगैरह, and there were these things called tip dabs, which my father remembers, and people used to go like specially to eat momos and those things, Tibetan dhabas जिनको बोलते हैं. And then after the civil war in Nepal, and also like with the Nepali immigration, when they loosened it, when we needed like Nepali labor, people started coming और भर के लोग आते थे, you know, because like similar language, similar religion, whatever, but obviously India couldn't rehabilitate all these people, and I don't know the figure, but a large number of people were left unemployed. So they started kind of setting up stalls and things like that. And jo Lajpat Nagar wali auntie hai na, Dodma auntie, I actually interviewed her for this piece, and she was saying, she was like shuruaat mein, she was 16 or like around there. She'd gotten married and she'd come as a refugee from the Karnataka mein ek refugee colony hai, wo wahan se aayi thi, Delhi. And she was like, I used to be so scared that I used to put a table of momos, like it used to be a red table. वो मोमो बना के रखती थी. She used to put up a sign and she used to hide under the table because she was so scared. Because I guess people were like racist or mean and things towards them then. And now she's a gangster. You see her walk around Lajpat Nagar. People like move. People move जब वो आ रही होती है सड़क से. And she's so she was telling me, she was like, it was very difficult to convince people to eat this food because वो, you know, it was foreign and it was phika like then, na? Because people would be like, wo phiki hai. And then, but slowly she said, because it was kind of healthy and stuff, people started expressing interest. And then when the Nepali migrants started coming in, lots of stalls came up. और फिर ये, I think Gorkha migrants भी आए थे northeast से. तो वो सब मिला जुला के, I think there was a lot of like people started stalls. But to me, I think it was the moment where momos, like, you know, to me, it's like, I feel like in Delhi and in most places, when something doesn't, like when ghar pe milta hi nahi hai na, when something is like kind of like separate from tradition, caste, ye sab cheeze, when something can actually literally bring people together. Kyunki hamare yahan, even food when you're eating outside, like now less maybe because of like global cuisines vagera, like caste used to determine who would eat, how would eat together. So when something doesn't belong to India itself, then there was no way to do that. So everyone had equal access to the momo. So that to me is like quite informative about how it became popular. Or फिर because it's a new thing or uski kabhi, there's no hard set rule. People started introducing different kinds of sauces or फिर अभी तो कुछ भी अभी my favorite one is actually at Yusufzai Community Center Market near Green Park Metro और वहाँ पे the जो भैया मोमो बनाते हैं he started making like mushroom and like soya and all kinds of things but also so I mean literally there's like no end. You can do whatever you want to it. So yeah, that's I feel like that's why that's why we kind of love it. And I mean, it's great. Like it's obviously really tasty. Sasta tha bahut क्योंकि maida, cabbage, keema. That's not like it's not things that are severely affected by price rise. Abhi hai. Like now, inflation is so much. But yeah. Anyway, so वो सब चीजें I think like that's all kind of why we take momo so seriously.
Yeah, you rightly labeled it as student food. I remember when I was in school. I think we had limited budget, so anything that was non-vegetarian, anything meat related was was sort of out of budget when you're just eating every day. We used to eat sort of patties or samosas, those kind of things, or pav bhaji. But then this momo came around, and it was 8 pieces for 40 rupees, and it was. People also thought it was healthy because it was not fried, unlike a lot of other street food items. Even though it has maida and that Szechuan chili, garlic, onion chutney is full of refined oil, it was not healthy. But there was this notion that because it's steamed, it's healthy, and it's easily available. It's literally available on every street corner of Delhi NCR. And I recently read that in Delhi, there are momo factories which make thousands of momos in bulk and then supply to local street vendors who heat it on like a steamer and serve it to people. Now it's served with mayo and whatnot. Earlier there was just cabbage momos and I think chicken momos. And also, do you think this chicken momos were actually chicken? There were rumors that they're, I don't know, pigeon, soya. What is your opinion on that?
I think the pigeon rumor is true. Because like sometimes you ate some of the chicken and you were like, okay. But no, I feel like, I don't know, maybe other cities and other places have this, but I feel like in Delhi and in like North India in general, पेट खराब होए या कुछ होए ना फर्क नहीं पड़ता है लोगों को. Like I will go and eat the same double fried spring roll that has been making me sick since I was 9 years old. But I'll still go to the same guy and I'll eat it because there's like a sense. It's almost as if like Vani, my friend who came up with bakchodi wala khana, she also says कि जितना पेट खराब होता है उतना वापस जाते हैं लोग. Like it's just it makes no sense. So it's just this thing of like not caring about. I mean, we should care about like hygiene and all that, but that's not like the main. It's never the main concern.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You mentioned Dolma Auntie. Can you tell our listeners a bit about those who are not familiar with Dolma Auntie's momos? Can you tell our listeners a bit about it?
Yeah. So Dolma Auntie momos is like it's called the first momo stall in Delhi. I don't know how much that's true, but like it's been verified by a bunch of people. And every time you see a YouTube video, they'll always say first momo stall in Delhi, like that. So she's this Tibetan lady who runs a stall now with her children, and first with her sister-in-law, and she's kind of like supposed to be the person that brought momos to the Delhi public. And in this piece about the tandoori momo, I think like I talk about Lajpat Nagar, and Lajpat Nagar is just quite like interesting for me because वहाँ पे बहुत तरीके like बहुत सारे communities हैं, and like people come from all kind of walks of life and also it's a place where there's no like so many different kinds of foods have gotten institutionalized there. So I think the momo, like the first momo stall being an institution over there is quite telling ki it's Lajpat Nagar because it's kind of like a mix now. Many communities, like there's also obviously everyone has different levels of power in Lajpat Nagar, but it is like historically it was a place where people like refugees from partition came and lived. So there's a sense of like movement in Lajpat Nagar. And Dolma Auntie's momos is now kind of like a very famous, like iconic spot. Or abhi unke yahan there's spring rolls chaat or like there's like different kinds of things. So she's a very, very impressive woman because when she started there was language barriers and there was, like I said, there was a bunch of racism towards Tibetans. Or abhi bhi hai, but abhi obviously come hai. Like I think when there were not that many people, it was hard. And obviously these people like left their home country recently, when she was here there was obviously a lot of trauma and things like that, but so many of them walked from Tibet. So there's a sense of like leaving and making India your new home. I'm sure it wasn't easy. So she was telling me. But then मैंने उनसे बहुत सवाल किए and I was like, was it difficult? And like a classic like Indian elder only, she was like, नहीं, बिल्कुल कुछ नहीं रहा. I was like, I'm sure थोड़ी तो मुश्किलें ही होंगी. But she didn't elaborate on how difficult it was, but like her daughter, and she did give me a sense of it was challenging, no, to set that stall up. Anyway, you guys should go. वो main road पे है. It's very easy to find. That's just the one. So, and she's also like she's the kind of pioneer of what I think of as aunties momos, yeah, like women with momo stalls, like just anybody. So she opened that gate a little bit.
Lajpat Nagar is a refugee colony. It was inhabited by refugees from Pakistan, now Pakistan, undivided India. So it's sort of apt that it welcomes this refugee food 60, 70 years later, which is the momo.
Yeah, I love Lajpat Nagar. It's like amazing.
Yeah, and it has Afghani food as well. So people who are interested in that. So, as you said, refugee food all across the world. Yeah. खैर एक काम करते हैं, हम ना फटाफट डोलमा आंटी के मोमो मंगा लेते हैं, और जब तक हम मंगा रहे हैं तब तक सुनने वाले श्रोताओं जाएं ब्रेक लेके आए.
आपने श्वेताओं को बोला था ब्रेक लेने के लिए, बाकी लोग क्या जिनका नाम श्वेता नहीं है?
श्वेता नहीं है तो आई एम सॉरी, श्वेता नहीं है तो नहीं है, यही है कहानी.
अच्छा थोड़े सीरियस मुद्दे पे आते हैं.
लोग को लगता है कितना डेस्परेट ये लौंडा है. कभी निहारिका की बात करता है, कभी श्वेता की बात करता है. For people who do not understand Niharika Ghosh was our episode on Nihari. So anybody who is interested, please go back and listen to Niharika Ghosh episode.
Yeah. ये एक टेक्निकल क्वेश्चन है आपके लिए. डिफरेंस क्या होता है डिम्सम और मोमो में? आई मीन इज डिम्सम जस्ट महंगा मोमो?
मतलब कह सकते हैं वैसे तो डिम्सम्स आर लाइक द gourmet momos, बट द बेसिक डिफरेंस होता है कि अलग अलग स्टार्च का इस्तेमाल है. दैट्स अबाउट इट, राइट? सो इफ यू रिमेंबर, इफ यू कैन रिकॉल ईटिंग dimsums in a fancy restaurant, you can see through it, right? उसके अंदर का जो स्टफिंग है वो दिखता है, whether it is meat or radish or whatever the stuffing is, because that's a different kind of starch altogether, which is usually potato or rice starch. However, your momo is maida, which is also starch, but it's completely different kind of. In fact, including your modak can also be termed as dumplings, because again, rice flour, kind of starchy thing, and then so that's the major difference between all these different kinds of mo.
There is a lovely episode on dumplings in this Netflix show called Ugly Delicious by David Chang. Please check it out if you haven't already, and if you do have a Netflix subscription.
हम अपना नहीं देंगे भैया.
हमारा
Netflix
DM मत करना.
Netflix DM मत करना भैया, प्लीज बता तो दिए है हमें अपना Netflix पासवर्ड भी दीजिए. हमारा पहले से 4 लोग के पास चल रहा है, और 4 लोगों में जो चौथा जो है ना वो मतलब पेन इन द बिहाइंड है, क्योंकि उसका मखत ने इतना कोरियन देखा है ना, पूरा नेटफ्लिक्स मतलब एल्गोरिथम उसके चक्कर में मेरा गड़बड़ हो गया. आई गॉट टू सी ऑल द के-पॉप, मैं तो देखता भी नहीं हूँ. गलती से स्क्विड गेम देख लिया था अपने प्रोफाइल पे, अब उसके बाद मेरे सिर्फ स्क्विड गेम टाइप की ही चीजें आ रही हैं, के-पॉप ड्रामास. दुख है जिंदगी का. खैर उस दुख से निकलते हैं, मोमो पे आते हैं. तो व्हाट Sharanya, you mentioned about it, it's a very, in a way, personal for Delhiites, and at least both of you grew up in Delhi. So you all must be having some sort of memory, ugly or beautiful, it doesn't matter, but some sort of memory for sure. So we start with you, Sharanya, and then we also go to Archit. Sharanya, your favorite memory of momo?
My favorite, yeah. I mean, there's so many, na, but I think so. I mean, like recently, ये यूसुफ सराय वाले जो भैया बता रही हूँ ना मैं, the one near the metro. That's like a place where my friends and I used to hang out quite a lot. वो जो market वाला scene है ना, where like there's nothing, there's only like a couple of food stalls and people are just sitting on the pavement or like momos खा रहे हो और गंदी सिगरेट पी रहे हो, and like very like 90s 2000s kind of chilling, because now everybody goes to cafes. So but that market I went recently and there's only ATMs, तो वहाँ पे इतने वो gentrify नहीं हो रहे, like coffee shops नहीं आ गई बहुत सारी, and it's actually really fun. And I was like, maybe I'm too old to do this kind of scene anymore. Like ऐसी pavement पे बैठ के 1 घंटे बात करना, but it's still the most fun. So I think for me, like, that market is very special. और वो घर से दूर है obviously, but I went to college in Chanakyapuri, तो मैं and my friends went to Gargi and all that, so we'd all like meet there. So that's a very special place for me, the Momo
Nice.
place.
Yeah.
Archit?
So, as I mentioned, in school, I think 11th, 12th ke time pe momos naye aaye the. They were cheap. They were tasty and supposedly healthy. So after, Saket and Malviya Nagar is where I grew up and where I went to school and tuition. So that's where we used to eat momos every day. And, Delhi is unique in that way that wo DDA markets जो हैं दिल्ली में बहुत सारी, वहाँ पे, as you said, Sharanya, you can just, chill in that public area. It hardly happens now. People go to malls and cafes, but you can chill in that public area, momos khao. And I remember always asking for extra chutney. Bhaiya extra chutney dena, lal chutney dena. Or sometimes also packing the momos. जब मतलब एक plate खाई और एक plate घर के लिए किसी के लिए pack करके ले गए. It did not, travel that well. They used to give it in this aluminium sort of packet. It did not travel that well, but I remember sharing thousands of plates, not thousands, I'm exaggerating, hundreds of plates of momos with friends after tuitions and, chatting over it. Saath side se Coca-Cola kharid li. Going older, you mix things in that Coca-Cola. So, those are my memories.
And it's also like, sorry, nahi batao.
Go ahead.
No, I was just thinking about like momos also to me are like student food, na? Like school and college khana, and we think about like Indian cuisine वगैरह. हम नहीं सोचते कि बच्चों को क्या खाना है, और कुछ भी बकवास तो खा ही रहे बच्चे, like, or like there's always like some random thing that's come up, especially because students just want to do like, like my friend says, like just want to like sit around, or and obviously it's not such a like like the West where drinking is very normalized in a very early age. So we have to find our own ways to have fun in the city. Right? Like, so like food happens to be one of those things, and you want to eat something that's a bit ridiculous. Now you don't always want to eat like acha khana. So that's not a thing. And,
वो जो I personally enjoy मतलब जो मोमो के साथ लाल चटनी होती है ना, ओए होए, कुछ तो अफीम मिलाते हैं उसमें सारे लोग. It's very addictive. मतलब अफीम का नशा है. Not like I have done अफीम, but I'm just assuming कि you eat it, नाक से पानी बहा, सड़ो होता है, लेकिन ओह भैया दौड़ा, भैया चटनी डालिए. And I think that's why they have, and this is my assumption that maybe this is why they have come up with a mayonnaise combination with momo, ताकि थोड़ा सा mild हो जाए. I
have to tell you that so most momo places during my sort of teenage years, they served momos which are very similar. The differentiating factor and the factor which made people choose one over the other was the chutney. Unki chutney zyada achhi hai. Inki chutney, everybody had their favorites based on chutney, not necessarily the actual momo.
Yeah, and also it's like a thing, na, to ask for more chutney. Like I remember we went to this place, Jaipur में रावत कचौड़ी करके, और जयपुर में कचौड़ी के साथ चटनी नहीं देते. And like there was a line of like Delhi वाले being like, ये क्या मजाक है? They'd be like, भैया चटनी, and that guy was like, no buddy, तुम मुझे पता है दिल्ली से आए हो, नहीं मिलेगी चटनी, and it's great, but people are not having it. Like, where's the chutney? What's happening? So it's really funny. I think we love chutney just as a like as a culture. We're like chutney.
You took this momo culture for granted, and when I went to Bombay, I realized ये सब जगह नहीं होता, because in Delhi it's available in every street corner. So I went to Bombay for college, and I was like, momo कहाँ है? Momo वाला क्यों नहीं है यहाँ पे कोई?
So funny.
And every Delhiite in Bombay has the idea कि हम लोग यहाँ पे एक मोमो स्टॉल सेटअप करेंगे. Every Delhiite has that idea.
हमारे रांची में, thank you by the way asking कि what is your favorite memory of.
You said you recently came to Delhi, हाँ?
अरे तो memory तो होगी ना, कहानी हर चीज रखी है मैंने.
यही प्रॉब्लम होता है ना, कैपिटल सिटी वालों से नहीं बात करनी चाहिए.
यही होते आए हम लोग के रास्ते, छोटा गांव से क्या आ गया, हमारी बेइज्जती कर दिया लोगों ने. खैर, तो द फेवरेट मेमोरी ऑफ माय, हमारे हॉस्टल में ना, मतलब हॉस्टल में तो हम रहते थे, हॉस्टल से करीब 1.5-2 किलोमीटर पे ना एक देयर इज अ प्लेस इन रांची, इफ पीपल आर लिसनिंग फ्रॉम रांची, जगह इसका नाम है चर्च कॉम्प्लेक्स. सुपर पॉपुलर जगह, इट्स लाइक उस टाइम का मॉल हुआ करता था वो. तो उसके बाहर ना एक लगता था मोमो वाला, और there was this Nepali guy who used to make momo and chicken feet soup. ओहो, उसके लिए इमेजिन करो हम 1.5 किलोमीटर चल के जाते थे खाने के लिए. बाजू में कुछ, बाजू में तो वही सब चिकन विकन मिलता था. So and then you go and then the reason for walking and not taking rickshaw or something because 20 रुपए का मोमो खाने जा रहे हो तुम, उसके लिए 50 रुपया स्पेंड करना कहाँ का लॉजिक है ये बात. तो हम वैसे चुपचाप से वॉकिंग, और रात को इवनिंग वॉक भी इसी बहाने हो जाया करता था. Yeah,
that's very interesting. Let's come to the bakchodi wala khana in your words or in your friends' words. Tandoori momos. Now,
Oh God,
the first time I tried tandoori momos, I absolutely loved them. I don't eat them as much because I don't eat maida much. But another line from your essay, and of course we'll link it to the show notes, is that one friend compares the vibe of eating a tandoori momo to the senseless adrenaline high you might get from racing someone on the main road or downing cheap whiskey.
मतलब मैंने ही बताया था Jonathan को in an email, and I managed to put it in the article. I was like, yeah, make us sound like a bunch of lunatics, which we are, but कोई नहीं.
So, what's unique about this dish?
I think that for me, see, the thing is that because I've been working in this like food writing space, and मुझे ना बहुत ज़्यादा editors email करते हैं and पूछते हैं like, oh, do you want to write about chai, and do you want to write about your traditional recipes, and then like, you know, like it's always this thing of like, they just assume that because I'm an Indian woman, like मैं पता नहीं, like I must be some domestic goddess, like, you know, so which is like ऐसा नहीं है. That's a weird assumption, but that's just the way that they think about us, na? So oftentimes, like I would think that what if I had to write about the cultures around me, like just like bakchodi and nonsense and people eating for the sake of like, कि you know line में खड़े होके धक्का देने किसी को, like that's also like that you know that's an element in like street food and things like that. Like my friends eat very badly, तो उनको देख के I was like इनके बारे में कौन लिखेगा, so you know that kind of stuff. And I don't know, I think I've divulged from your question a bit, but thinking about that I was like, when we talk about Delhi cultures, we always talk about the old cultures, which is great because we have good ones like Shahjahanabad or Kebab or Vagera, like amazing, beautiful stuff. But what about the stuff that's not so beautiful, quote unquote, you know, like the stuff that's a bit like badtameez and all that, because that's a huge part of our culture. So like, and that's the thing, I kind of wanted to own being this thing they say about Delhi, na ki tum log aggressive ho aur tumhe pasand nahi karta koi, like that kind of stuff. I wanted to own it. I wanted to embrace it. I wanted to be like, yeah, you know what? We're bad people, but sorry, hum kuch nahi kar sakte uske bare mein, and this is our food, and it doesn't make any sense. But to me, the tandoori momo is kind of like, comes out of that need to exaggerate, this need of excess that the city has. Ki, you know, अगर दोस्तों के लिए जान दे दो और प्यार करो तो मतलब पता नहीं कोई, like, you know, it's like everything is like big time. So I think to me that sense of exaggeration is very, it's very Delhi, it's very like North Indian, it's very, because again, like I'm not a pure North Indian, but I'm not. My family is from the south, so oftentimes my friends used to tell me कि तुम लोग अपनी, like me and my sister, तुम अपनी personality ना ज़्यादा ही करते हो, exaggerate. And like I feel like you're like the way that we think about Delhi or something. Anyway, I think I've completely digressed. But yeah, the tandoori momo was a way for me to think about those things. So people are always like, oh, ये बहुत ज़्यादा है, but like, so what, you know? So what? अगर ज़्यादा है तो इसका मतलब नहीं है कि गलत है. It's not nice.
Sadaf, can you, as a chef, define tandoori momos for our listeners? What are they?
It is Delhi's love for
नहीं बिल्कुल बेसिक टर्म्स में क्या होता है वो उसके,
हाँ वही तो बता रहा हूँ, trying to मतलब be really also giving it enough respect कि क्या है. I think it's the Delhi wala's love of putting everything in tandoor. So tandoori momo basically is what Sharanya has also mentioned. You have just the same momo, not really same momo. There's one very minute difference which people don't necessarily understand, the difference between a regular steam momo versus a tandoori momo. Tandoori momo's outer shell a little thicker, not really thin like the steam momos, because you got to marinate the whole dish and then that goes in a seekh. अब सीख में जाके जब वो तंदूर में जाएगा तो अगर पतला पतला शेल होगा तो वो गिर जाएगा. And that's why if you have ever noticed, they have a little thicker thing. And then of course what again back to Sharanya's article where she talks about this particular tandoori momo smeared with all these orange colored chutney. So then उसके ऊपर चटनियां होती हैं 50,000 टाइप की, एंड दैट्स लिटरली मोमो इन अ तंदूर.
तंदूरी
यूनिक
चिकन का मसाला होता है उसमें.
तंदूरी चिकन मसाला अंदर होता है. कभी कभी मतलब सब नहीं यूज करते हैं, लेकिन कुछ कुछ लोग अंदर डालते हैं. दे मैरिनेट द चिकन एज वेल इन तंदूरी चिकन मसाला. कुछ लोग दे मेक इट just like a regular one, and then everything is in the coating. So the coating will have that tandoori, just the way you make tandoori chicken tikka. उस तरीके से बनता है.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very interesting thing. I personally, I have nothing against it. I think it just also tastes good. However, one tip, if people want to try tandoori momo, if they haven't already, I think it's better to try right there, because घर आते आते तो कहानी खत्म हो जाएगी, because you need that crispiness.
Yeah.
It doesn't travel.
Exactly. हाँ, only
Because right
will travel.
now, so right now, like एक महीने पहले we got it from Hunger Strike only, और एक तो डबल मलाई डाल दी थी उन्होंने, you know, and I told him, I was like, मत डालो, like just don't, because the malai really like coagulates. And then I went and did some things and all. 2 घंटे हो गए गाड़ी में बैठ के, and it was like not great.
This is the Afghani tandoori momo जिसमें मलाई डालते हैं.
मैंने उनको बोला था ऐसे दे दो आप, like just normal tandoori momo, no malai, no nothing, and he's like double malai.
अरे आपने मना किया है, ये लीजिए 2 बारी.
Yeah. And this is also typically served with hari chutney, because tandoori items are typically served with hari chutney. And you know, the first time I tasted it, I absolutely loved it, because there's something about cooking in fire, cooking in a tandoor, which is very primitive and which is just, I really enjoyed. वो जो burnt, semi-burnt taste होता है, मुझे बड़ा मजा आता है वो खाने में. So I actually prefer to eat tandoori momos over regular steamed momos, or even the for me unedible fried momos.
Oh,
yeah.
Paneer momos नहीं खाए fried. They're great. I feel like fried paneer momos are fine. Everything else I'm a bit like, I don't know.
And you mentioned
it's like क्यों बोल रहे हो ये सब?
I don't like fried momo at all. Like bleh.
You know,
it's great.
Yeah. You mentioned in your essay that the idea of putting a momo in a tandoor is not entirely acceptable to elite diners and food critics. Now, I was thinking, if some tiny outlet in Delhi had not invented or experimented with tandoori momos, I bet you this would have been something that a gourmet modern Indian restaurant would have definitely come up with. It fits in the Indian accent menu, which is actually I think a pretty good restaurant. It fits in one of those menus. So because it has first been taken up by a local food joint, the elite modern Indian restaurants won't take it up, because they would look down at it.
Yeah. I do think that's true. And basically, again, this is something I told Jonathan on email. I feel like Jonathan could just be from Delhi, because usko na, he likes to
Jonathan कौन है हमारे listeners को बता.
Jonathan, sorry. मेरा
कौन है ये John साहब?
Jonathan is the editor of Whittles London, which is a newsletter that's run from London. It's fantastic. Also, basically, he has this knack of like wanting to write about very outrageous things. Things that nobody else wants to write about. Things that people want to like, that the things that people think are safe, like not safe, etc. He publishes a lot of that stuff. So he published this tandoori momo piece.
Jonathan क्या बॉम्बे से है, महाराष्ट्र से है?
नहीं, Jonathan गोवा से है. उसकी मॉम गोवा से है और उसके पापा इंग्लिश.
अच्छा, ये लंदन से उसका आई थॉट उसका नाम जॉनथन विठल है.
That would be a joke. मैं उसको बताती हूँ.
जॉनथन विठल बाबू काय करते हो तुम्ही?
Sorry, I was trying to answer your question, but मैं कुछ और कहना थी. But yeah, I mean that's true. But I also think about like a lot of foods that are just like happen on the streets, and you can't put a label on them of tradition and ye and wo, or किसी की नानी ने बनाया और ये सब वगैरह नहीं कर सकते, तो फिर people are like ये असली नहीं है, or this is like random bakchodi वाला खाना है. They don't want to talk about it as like real food. So,
a modern Indian restaurant would have come up with an elaborate story to explain the origins of tandoori momo. Yeah.
Like,
I would have done that.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is like obviously like restaurants need to run and this kind of stuff. But I feel like a lot of street foods happen because of like moods, where someone will be like, "Bhaiya, isko aise kar do na," and then it just becomes like a thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's something, and I think I wrote about it because also no one lets me. Like I said, they all these like usually foreign editors को लगता है मतलब मैं यहाँ पे full on like rose beans butter and like I don't know what they think we do, so I kind of want to write about this stuff just to kind of establish कि sorry यार हम भी मजे करते हैं.
I think on this Dixon Doctor said a really nice thing as well, and he was talking about well, we as in Vikram and I, not Archit for sure. Vikram and I were sharing our love for vada pav, and he was talking about how there was in Goa they have this one vada pav which is a little advanced vada pav because what they do is that they stuff the same patty thing aloo in capsicum, and then wo ho jata hai batter fry, and once they batter fry that, then that goes in between the buns. So it's just yeah, and so what he was saying, what you are also mentioning, right? That there are a lot of times when you see food on the street or street food, whatever however you want to call it, that comes just because कोई आया होगा बोला भैया एक काम करो इसमें ना ये कर दो, जैसे वो चीज़ है ना कि ये मोमो ना 3 मिनट कम स्टीम करना, something like that. Like I think Delhi had this कुछ दिन पहले बड़ा ही बकवास एक ट्रेंड स्टार्ट हुआ दिल्ली में, और वो था कोका कोला और स्प्राइट ऑमलेट. I don't know if you yeah.
कुछ भी होता है.
I mean, I don't know whether it was unhealthy or not, but just the sound of it is sounding unhealthy. You cooking soda. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, no. First, no. And second, also, it's unhealthy. So even though complete, sort of, I would say, full points for the innovation, but in my head, it's like, I think it's unhealthy. And assumption again is somebody must have come to the streets, कोई Instagram में चला गया होगा, बोला भैया आप ना 1 kg इसमें बटर मत डालो फॉर द चेंज, अमूल के बटर, इसमें ना आप कोका कोला की बोतल खोल के डाल दो. तो वो डाल दिया, अब उसने डाला तो बाकी लोगों ने फॉलो कर लिया. तो आई एम अज्यूमिंग मोस्ट ऑफ द स्ट्रीट फूड्स न्यू एज, एटलीस्ट न्यू एज आर कमिंग बिकॉज ऑफ समबडी सेइंग कि भैया थोड़ा इसके अंदर कुछ और डाल दो ना, थोड़ा सा देखते हैं ना करके क्या लगेगा.
But I think as a people, I think we like tamasha, na? Like हर चीज में उसको cruise out. Because I remember when I was doing that custard powder piece, मैंने custard powder का piece लिखी थी, and I was doing some research about like 2004 में, which is the thing that Indians ate most or something like this. I don't know if it was 2004 or 2006, पता नहीं. And it was the choco lava cake. Yeah. Literally only for the reason कि उसमें से chocolate like फूट के आता है.
फूट के आता है. हाँ.
There's no other explanation.
Yeah, I remember there was an obsession about it.
Yeah. Like wow.
Yeah.
So I think we like theater, and tandoori momos also like theater, and like we like that. We like कि बाहर जाके कुछ तमाशा हुए, then we feel full. Like that's a thing.
And tandoor is actually not a very easy thing to cook with. It requires some sophistication. I mean, we casually, because we're so used to tandoori roti and tandoori items, we take it for granted, but it requires some training. It's this learning curve, and there's some drama attached to taking something out of a pit, and your food is sort of ready as you take it out of that pit.
Yeah.
I will add 2 things there. First thing first is I remember the first time ever that I was using a tandoor, and I was basically making the tandoori roti. भाई साहब हाथ के फ्री के वैक्सीन हो गई थी मेरी.
crazy है.
मैंने उसके अंदर हाथ डाला and it is literally like 500 के आसपास होता है उसका, सेल्सियस में, फारेनहाइट नहीं, सेल्सियस के आसपास है. You put your hand in and पूरी मस्त सेक्सी टाइप की आप बिल्कुल हाथ निकल के, मैं अपने हाथ देखकर टर्न ऑन हो गया. ओहो क्या सेक्सी हाथ बन के आया है. Second thing is that I was in Armenia, and Armenia has this thing called lavash bread. And I mean, of course, we also know about lavash, but not the crispy one. The thin. Lavash bread in Armenia is exactly same like Rumali roti. Yeah, it is Rumali roti basically. Now their culture, and this fascinates me every time. First, lavash bread is always made in Armenia, always made by the women, not by the men. That's the first thing. Second thing, unlike in India, when you make Rumali, you make on ulta tawa. या फिर वो सिकड़ी जो बोलते हैं. But in Armenia, what they do, they have a similar pillow which we use in India as for tandoori roti. They have a similar thing. उसको मस्त रोल किया, उसके ऊपर लगाया पिलो के ऊपर, and they go half down in the tandoor. मतलब उनका सर अंदर जाता है. In a way, what they also do is they sort of, I mean, I'm like, oh wow, what if you actually fall? But they don't fall. उस तरीके से उनकी ट्रेनिंग होती है properly. For them, it is more like giving respect and to the food god, and as well as to the grain, and that's what they go half down every time they have to put up lavash bread in the tandoor. Wow. So that was fascinating for me when I was traveling in Armenia, and especially with food. Yeah,
that's amazing.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
है तो वहां से आर्मीनिया से आते हैं हम वापस अपने गांव मेरा देश, गुड़गांव नहीं, दिल्ली. Now you again mentioned about Humayunpur, fascinating food in Humayunpur that people can get. Now you write in your article, and I quote, Humayunpur is an integral part of Delhi's foodscape. It is in spots like this, where the usual parade of dominant taste, gastronomy is punctured, where food cultures usually kept at the periphery of Indian cuisine stand in the center, and restaurants are both pillars to the community and affordable to the city's new and young. If Delhi is a food city, it is in the neighborhood like this one. Oh well, ये बड़ा claim है. I don't even know if you remember writing this line, but if you
No, I
do,
don't.
so that's
I
a
truly
big claim. Yeah, हाँ इसीलिए वापस मैंने पढ़ दिया पूरा half by half.
मुझे
What makes you claim?
शाहरुख खान ending दे दी ना उस paragraph को. So that's
Oh,
all.
Yeah.
This is it. सिर्फ ये सच है. Anyway, हाँ. Sorry.
So that was the question. You said Shahrukh Khan ending. You don't believe in this?
It's
No.
It's a big claim about Humayunpur because it's a relatively unknown neighborhood of Delhi. Now upcoming as a food neighborhood. So tell us why you wrote this, if you remember.
Well, I think I wrote it because I love that neighborhood. I truly love it. Like like every time I go there, I'm kind of, I miss when things were more informal than they are now. Like I miss kind of my neighborhood in East Delhi, Mayur is abhi hamare cafes वगैरह like it's happening now. But I still miss that kind of like walking in and just the sort of like informal nature of food where there's a store and then there's also like a small restaurant and things are changing quite a lot and stuff like that. Humayunpur in a way feels more raw than a lot of parts of the city do, especially in South Delhi, because everything, especially it's behind Safdarjung B5 market, which is very nice. But again, I feel like it's a little bit like sterile for me. I don't want to go from Piano Man to go to Blue Tokai to go to some overpriced like pizza place. ठीक है यार, अच्छा है, like it's nice, whatever. But it's not where I kind of like, I don't get any pleasure from there, And then immediately I go to Humayunpur behind it and I'm just like, wow, because it's fun. Like people are walking around doing their things. Like residential neighborhoods and a food neighborhood are just so intertwined with each other now over there.
Yeah.
So,
what's unique? Like what kind of people live there? What's unique about it?
Yeah. So Humayunpur is so basically it's like pehle, I think before the 80s or something, it used to be a primarily like it's a neighborhood owned by sort of urban village where the landlords are from the Jat community, and uske baad now like with the call center boom and also like the migration of students from the northeast and migrants from the northeast into Delhi, they started living there. And it makes sense that everybody lives together because there's a lot of discrimination that people from the northeast face, and so it makes sense that they live together where they can like find their food ingredients and where they can cook their food without being like shouted at ki isse badbu aati hai, ye hoti hai, wo hota hai. And I'm like, it still happens in Humayunpur, but I understand why people can't really assimilate into other kind of neighborhoods and everything, because in the north there is a lot of surveillance of like people from outside by landlords and people like communities that have power. So obviously different communities ke saath like alag tariko mein hota hai, but I think Humayunpur has become a place where people from Nagaland, Manipur, Arunachal Pradesh, everywhere come and stay there. So it's just really fun also because you get to eat all kinds of things that you wouldn't get to outside Humayunpur, and in a very normalized way. It's not like hawa bana rahe hain sab cheezon ka, but you go somewhere, you can eat like you can eat liver, you can eat miso diner pe, they have all kinds of, I honestly don't even know, but they have all kinds of like traditional food from Mizoram that is everyone has to consider like exotic or like like not edible or whatever, but there people rush to eat that stuff. So for me, it's always just been really nice where you see a different kind of like, because when you think about India, you think about a certain kind of place, but not me, but like the world. But there, that place just that like busts that idea, that idea that has so much power. Ki India mein sirf ye 2-4 cheezein khate hain. Humayunpur is like, no, you know what? We're a neighborhood in the capital, and we will eat this stuff because. Yeah. Anyway, so for me, that's it's like a powerful kind of place, and it's very tasty. I love northeastern food. I think that all like there's a like just the way that people in Nagaland eat in my brief trip was like such an intelligent way to eat. It's amazing. And then we're always like, acha, like, wow, how are people look so young in the northeast and all that? I think it's because they eat with such there's so much simplicity, and there's still like lots of like it's very complex also. So I really love that neighborhood. I think that's why this article is very like it's very like lots of large statements.
I also think when you go to Humayunpur, it's not just you're just going to eat Northeast cuisine. But
Mm.
when you literally get a lot of different kinds of cuisine, of course, you have the entire European or continental food, which includes pizza, pasta, burgers, etc. But you also have this new thing now coming in Humayunpur, which is a Korean food.
Yeah.
So, which is surprising, and also surprising in the concept, basically, but also food-wise, it tastes good. Authentic, not authentic, I don't really care ever, but it tastes really nice. I'm like, wow, if this is what Koreans are eating, then hey, we are not even Korean and yet we are eating this food. Beat that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also it's just but the thing is that for me, like neighborhoods that allow things to enter are my favorite ones. Like Lajpat Nagar, Humayunpur, things like that. It's not like yahan pe sirf aisi cheez hogi, like that's a really important kind of thing. Because it's the capital, yeah. Like people from everywhere are going to come. So it's important that they do come, and then it does happen. So
that's why it's called melting pot. Should be like that.
I hope it's like that. Going forward, God knows. क्या होगा?
Hopes high रखेंगे हम. Right. तो हम ब्रेक से वापस आ गए हैं. Of course, you must have realized क्योंकि हमारी आवाज आ गई अब तो ब्रेक से वापस आ गए. और ये है हमारा आखिरी वाला कंट्रोवर्शियल और हमारा फेवरेट सेगमेंट. अच्छा, कंट्रोवर्शियल भी हमने ही बोला है और फेवरेट भी हमने ही बोला. हमें कोई किसी ने बोला नहीं है. ऐसे नहीं कि अचानक से मैं बिल्कुल वायरल होगा कि ओह माय गॉड किसी ने फलाना चीज बोल दिया. बिल्कुल भी नहीं. हमें लगता है कंट्रोवर्शियल है तो क्या फर्क पड़ता है. हमें लगता है ना, हम खुश है ना, बस आत्मनिर्भर बनो बेटा, आत्मनिर्भर. तो वी ऑफ कोर्स आस्क्ड द पर्सन गेस्ट ऑफ ऑनर कि आपके जो है फेवरेट. अच्छा, बिकॉज यू मेंशन अबाउट absurd food, right? So let's say absurd momo कौन से हैं फेवरेट?
मेरे
absurd है दुनिया के लिए, but it's your favorite.
I like this like mushroom momo that I recently I thought was great, but I don't think वो उतना absurd है. I think वो अभी बस पता नहीं चला लोगों को कि है क्या. Yeah, I mean in the spirit of these things I want to say कि वो मुझे moberg बहुत पसंद है, but I like really didn't like it. It's a momo.
आएंगे हम उस पर भी आएंगे रुके. अच्छा, आप
sorry, बताओ.
नहीं हम since you have mentioned already and overrated, तो ये बता दीजिए फिर overrated कौन सा है?
Overrated. वो चाणक्यपुरी वाले मोमोज अभी नहीं मुझे पता. Like there's one place where like I think चाणक्यपुरी was one of the main places जहाँ पे वो मोमो रेस्टोरेंट्स होती थी पहले, और अभी वो नहीं मुझे अच्छी लगती ज्यादा. Also because पहले it was like the only place you could go to eat. फिर वो
क्या अनोखा है उसके बारे में?
क्या?
What's unique about those Chanakyapuri momos?
I don't remember actually. No, I think they're just regular momos, but also you used to get pork momos there. और वो ज़्यादा नहीं मिलते थे ना. Now you get them. सड़क पे नहीं मिलती pork momos, and you have to eat them like in a restaurant, I think, or like a cafe, na. But I think pork momos are the most underrated. They're great. Oh, can I tell more?
Yeah, go on.
सब मिला दिया, कचरी बना दिया.
There's this place
मोमो
called
को खीर बना दिया.
There's a place called Pemas in Marianagar, and they have these. They have those fluffy momos. They're amazing. They're so good. And I've not eaten them. I ate them and I was like, wow, ये तो बहुत अच्छी हैं. So yeah, wow momo is terribly overrated. पता नहीं क्या है वहाँ पर, मुझे समझ नहीं आता. Don't like. I'm like, if you could eat fresh momos so easily, why are you eating all these weird frozen type momos?
मुझे भी लगता है. सब बता दिया मैडम ने, अर्चित पुरी साहब, ओवर अंडर अपने हिसाब से. सवाल एक जवाब दो. So now you can also tell us, Archit, your favorite momo. So I will only ask only the Delhi walas. Delhi वालों को तुम बताओ, मैं कुछ नहीं बोला रहा.
अरे तो I think I'll answer my underrated momo. So underrated momo is this momo called a Yarkandi momo, available in Gurgaon at this place called the Ladakhi Kitchen or Wangchuk's Ladakhi Kitchen. This is basically a fist size momo, big momo. इसमें इसका जो मेम्ब्रेन होता है, जो आउटसाइड लेयर होती है, वो पतली होती है, और अंदर टिपिकली व्हाट आई लाइक इज मटन, और वो मटन के साथ ना थोड़ा जूस होता है. सो when you actually bite into it, some of that juice drips down. So I think that's a good sign of a good momo for me. That and the fact that उसका जो outer layer है वो thin हो, because thick layer वाले मोमो बनाना तो आसान है, because that will ensure कि वो कुछ लीक ना करे उससे, एंड उससे और ज्यादा मैदा कंटेंट बढ़ जाता है मोमोज का. बट थिन लेयर बनाना is actually an art. So I quite like those kind of momos. And these are also made of whole wheat typically, and not maida. I don't eat maida, so that's another reason why I like them. And यही मेरे favorite हो गए लद्दाखी kitchen से. छोटे वाले भी मिलते हैं whole wheat momos, again dripping with juice, dripping with fat, very tasty. Pork भी ले सकते हैं आप, chicken भी ले सकते हैं, but mutton I think are the best. So those are my underrated and favorites. सदाफ आपके कुछ तो होंगे यार.
Overrated बता दो ना, overrated बोल दो.
Overrated deep fried momos. So I think basically deep frying something made of maida is just the laziest form of cooking. This is मतलब it can't taste bad. अगर आप मैदे को deep fry कर दो, it will taste decent, but it's not extraordinary. So I think it's just very lazy cooking. That's why I'm not a fan of fried momos.
Oh, I won't even put fried momo in overrated either or underrated. I just don't like it. It becomes chewy. It just when you fry it, shallow fry, deep fry, it just becomes chewy. So ना तो favorite है, ना तो under है, ना तो over है. बस हमारे लिए exist नहीं करना है, इसको इतना तवज्जो देना ही नहीं है.
Yeah.
मेरा favorite momo क्या है? You asked. दो हैं, लेकिन उनमें से एक जो है, I think, of course we all love Dolma Andi, तो उनका तो special mention है. But in Delhiites, you've got these guys, Momo Mia. You've got really nice momo because it's stuffed nicely. तो पूरा जो shell है ना, उसमें अच्छे से गोश्त होता है. Unlike all vegetables, whatever you like, तो वो stuffing काफी अच्छी होती है. And then chutney is also quite delicious. So yeah, that is my favorite momo.
It's also मुझे और thoughts आ रहे हैं best momos के बारे में. It's just jhol momos are really, I don't know if they're underrated or they're like just not, people don't know about them, but they're so good. And there's a place called Nympho, this Sikkimese place.
Yeah.
Kailash Colony में ना, उनके बहुत अच्छे हैं वो, they're so good. Like ठीक है, like in my article I'm like, oh, momos इससे खाने चाहिए when you go out and you want to be silly and whatever, but obviously it's a great, like, बीमार लग रहा है या whatever, you're feeling tired and all, like it's a good food in that way. So Nympho is like my go-to then. I love it.
Another momo that I recently discovered, which I think is underrated, is Fab Cafe ka momo. They make it with jackfruit flour, so that's way healthier than any other momo that you will have. Very interesting, and I thought, what toot jayega jaldi se, because jackfruit does not stick as well as maida, but it did not break, and I guess they've perfected how to make it.
Wow. Haven't tried it yet. I will.
Yeah.
So yeah, तो clearly Wow Momo को मिला है 0 रेटिंग और Fab India को मिला है 50 रेटिंग. तो हम ये जश्न रिवाज कंटिन्यू करते हैं फिर. और इस रिवाज को कंटिन्यू करने का मतलब ये है कि अब करते हैं दुकान बंद, क्योंकि बड़ी जोर की भूख लग गई है, और जाएं अपने अपने घर पर में मोमो वगैरह ऑर्डर कर लें. जहाँ से करना है करो. वाओ मोमो भी करना करो मेनू की. तो अड्डा पैसा, your business is your business, none of my business.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on the show, Sharanya.
Thank you, Sharanya.
Thank you for having me. It was great.